It is a Thursday night, and Thursday night means that it is YSS Let's Talk Live, and we are live right here on Facebook. Yes, live. So if you're watching live, that means you can comment, you can ask some questions about what we're talking about on YSS Let's Talk Live. And tonight, folks, is an exciting night because it's opening up an entire month of, yes, National Adoption Month. And we've got a couple of all-stars here. One all-star, I know, Bambi Schrader. And everybody knows Bambi. I mean, Bambi is a legend. Can I call you a legend, Bambi?
Sure.
Okay.
That just means old, right?
So Bambi is a legend, and anybody around the Midwest, the entire country knows Bambi Schrader for all the work that she has done in foster care and adoption. She's an adoptive parent herself. 26 years of experience. How long have you been with YSS, Bambi?
31 years, but 26 has been with foster care and adoption.
Wow. So lots of experience there. Again, an adoptive parent herself. And then we have, Miss Pamela Jones. And Pam, I am honored to meet you. I don't know if you know this or not. I haven't talked to you about this, but I know of you because of your name and because of your work and what you've done around the entire state and the influence you've had throughout the entire Midwest, of course, the country. And Pam here, we're talking, you have 11 children, 3 by birth and 8 by adoption.
Correct.
So, and that started when? 2000, I think I was reading 2002.
Yes.
So 2002 and it was, again, incredible. And not only do you do that personally with adoption, but you're also a trainer and recruiter for 4 Oaks, right?
Correct.
Okay. And for those that are tuning in, if you don't know what we're talking about here with 4 Oaks, YSS and whatnot, YSS, we are an organization that reaches throughout the entire state, multiple programs, a really big agency that ultimately goes into the community, serves families, and we partner with so many other agencies as well. And 4 Oaks is one of the other agencies that we partner with. And Bambi has experience with 4 Oaks. And again, we have Pam Jones here to jump on board and to talk about this program. Okay, so now no further ado. National Adoption Month. So Bambi, what are we talking about when we're talking about National Adoption Month? Why is this so special and what does it mean?
You know, National Adoption Month really celebrates adoptions across the United States. So about 20 years ago, a judge from Polk County went to a national conference where other states shared that they had hundreds, if not thousands, of adoptions that were put on the back, schedules because they just didn't take precedence over criminal trials or other type of criminal or activities, things like that. So he came back to Iowa and said, why do we need to make families wait? Let's do, and across the United States, they did this, where they started what's called a National Adoption Month and National Adoption Day celebrations. And so the first ones of these were in Polk County. And now they've spread across the state of Iowa. I think last year there were about 11 of them that were held. They're usually either held on a Friday or a Saturday. And what happens then is we have judges, court reporters, personnel from the courthouse, which might include your police officers, might include your security officers, janitors, everybody else. And of course, staff from 4 Oaks and YSS and all the other agencies that work with it. And we get together on a Friday or a Saturday, and they just finalize adoptions. Again, this is not just the state of Iowa. This is across the United States. They finalize adoptions back to back to back to back, and they get them done. Families in Iowa at our, like last year, we had one in Waterloo on a Friday, and we had one in Webster City on the Saturday. And I think last year there were over 50 children just between those 2 adoption celebrations that were adopted. And when I say celebration, it really is, because families get to invite guests. Some families will come with just them and the kids that they're adopting. Some people will bring 25 or 30 people. And it's cool because they'll be in t-shirts and it'll say Team Jones, or it'll, or a gotcha day or things like that. We always have food and there's balloons, and each child gets a bag with a quilt and a stuffed animal. And in Waterloo, Culver's came last year and gave out ice cream. And it's a fantastic day. And again, it gets those adoptions that have maybe been waiting for a little while off the dockets and gets those adoptions finalized for children. So it's a very, very special time in the state of Iowa, but also in the United States.
Well, and Bambi, oops, my fault. I forgot to introduce everybody to myself. My name is Rusty Johnson. I'm a prevention specialist with YSS. I was raised in the foster care system and was adopted actually just 3 years ago at the age of 37 from a former foster mother of mine. And so this really hits home with me. This is something so special. And when you're talking about celebration, Bambi, you're exactly right. It was a celebration, and mine didn't happen this month. It happened actually on the day of my birthday, conveniently enough, and was so special, and so many people rallied around. But even before I was adopted, I really worked kind of advocating for foster kids and being adopted, and just all around, just to reach out, and that village mentality. And I'll never forget, goodness, I was just talking with somebody about it the other day. I think it was back in 2005. I came back to Iowa. I was living in Dallas. I came back to Iowa, and I spoke it was in November, and I spoke at the courthouse, or maybe it was the Capitol. Can't remember, for a national adoption ceremony. And it was unreal. All of the people that came around the table, and to see how Iowa really celebrates that and really, really rallies around that. So, Pam, can you talk a little bit about how Iowa rallies around this, and what we do, maybe how we celebrate National Adoption Month, and how it's unique and how people can get involved?
Well, thank you, Rusty. And you're right. Adoptions are special no matter when they happen, whether it's in January in the middle of a snowstorm, or whether it's in November when it's in National Adoption Month. This year is going to be a little bit more challenging because of the pandemic and because of COVID, and not able to getting large numbers of people together. What we have seen throughout the year with adoptions, a lot of them are being done kind of through the technology that we're using tonight. So adoptions are still happening, which is a really great thing, that these kids are getting permanency in their life. Well, those special days like we did last year in November are not happening this year because we can't get together. So every area is doing it a little bit different, but in our service area, we are recognizing those families that are adopting, and we're going to them. We're taking to them quilts and bags of goodies, and Culver's is even coming on board and putting together a little package for those families, letting them know how important this is, and it's still a celebration to recognize them this month.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's all, adoptions are happening even because of COVID. Or
yes.
Because of COVID, but in spite of COVID, or
in spite of COVID.
However you want to phrase it, they are happening. And I, again, not to get all personal here, but I have a good friend who just adopted, and it was so cool because their whole family, like you were just talking, Bambi, they all had t-shirts.
Yep.
That family, whatnot, welcoming in this young child. And they, of course, a lot of the family wasn't able to be a part of the actual in-person ceremony, but they were able to tune in virtually and show their t-shirts and get screenshots of this awesome moment that is going to last an entire lifetime. And again, so many exciting things happening. Okay, next question. So, Bambi, when foster families adopt the children in their home and they're not able to be reunified, do they stay licensed? And I know this is kind of a complex question, maybe for some people that might be tuning in. So can you kind of break that down a little bit? And for the general public that might have even just got that question, does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah. Yep. It does. It does. So the children that come through the foster care system, the goal is, of course, 100% reunification. So we have to really make sure people understand the difference between what we're talking about with the Four Oaks Family Connections Program is a DHS. Children are coming through the DHS, the welfare system, versus private or international adoption. That's something completely different. But so the goal would be reunification. When that does not happen, then we go on to the purpose of adoption. And in many times, if the child has not been reunified or an extended birth family member has not stepped up or is not able to take the child, then the foster family does adopt them. Thus, then what happens is once they adopt that child, that number of children. So the way we figure out how many kids can be in a home is based on square footage of the bedrooms in the home, the ability and capacity of the family to take care of larger groups of children, transportation, all those kind of things. So some families, once they adopt, their nest is full, for lack of a better term. They just have, they have their beds filled. They don't have any more car seats, don't have any room in their cars. And plus they're trying to meet the needs of the kids that are already in the home. Other families may adopt and decide, you know what, we still have more time and more space, and we're going to do this. We always, our DHS's rule is we usually put a family on hold, meaning they can't get any more calls for placements, foster placements, for 3 months. We want to make sure they have that time to stabilize, make sure they've got, time to get everything ready for another child, because taking in children is challenging. And we don't want the children in the home that are already there to backslide because the behaviors of the children possibly coming in. Right. So at least for 3 months, they probably won't take any more placements. But I would say it's probably about 50-50. I don't have a current stat for you, but I would say about 50% of the families stay licensed and 50% of the families choose to give up their license because their house is full. So other times what we do say though, here's an example. So we adopted, as you mentioned at the very beginning, we adopted our daughter when she was 5. And for the next 10 years, we stayed licensed, but we only provided what was called respite care services, meaning that we never took another long-term placement, but we helped out other families for given periods of time. And I'll tell you what, if somebody, whether or not you're new coming into foster care or you're an adoptive family and you want to just stay on licensed in a certain capacity, that's an absolutely fantastic way, because we want families to have access to proactive respite care and not reactive respite care, meaning that if things are starting to heat up in a foster home or there's illness or there's something going on, we have families that are dedicated to doing respite like we were, and we can set that up to maintain and stabilize those placements rather than the placement falling apart and us having to find a different place for that child. So I would say a lot of families, we do encourage them. The other thing that might happen, and we talk to families about this, is always the what if question. So if I adopt a child, like even with our daughter, she was 5 when we adopted her. There was a chance, hopefully there's not anymore because our daughter's 26, so her birth mother would be a lot older. But there was always a chance between, after we adopted her, that we could have got a call saying, birth mom's pregnant again, we're going to remove, would you take the sibling? And so if we would have no longer been licensed, there would have been no option for us to do that. So again, that's another reason some families stay licensed, because there may be future siblings to the child that they adopted.
Wow. And so, and you were just talking, and let me go there, Bambi, respite. Mm-hmm. You were talking respite homes.
Yep.
And for those, again, tuning in that might not be real familiar with foster or adoptive care, those are homes. Well, can you talk about respite homes?
Sure. So when families become licensed, there's 4 different types of care that they can choose to do. They can do 1, 2, 3, or 4 of them. So short-term care would be less than 4 months, having a child in your home less than 4 months. Long-term care would be anything over 4 months, and that could be towards reunification or adoption. Then there's urgent care, which means you're getting a call and the kid's coming in probably today. And then the last one is called respite. And that's where you just provide care for another licensed foster family's children, when they're coming in and when they're going home. So it's kind of like being a grandma or grandpa or an aunt and uncle for a weekend or week at a time. And it's a nice way to break into into foster care. And it's a nice way to go out if you're not ready to give up your license, but not take any more full-time kids.
And I can tell you, as a kid who was raised in foster care in Iowa, some of the respite homes that I went to, I truly learned a lot from, and had wonderful dialogue, and had a wonderful, so that's a shout out to those people who took me in Iowa as a foster kid and respite. I'm sure I was not easy, but I tell you what, I did learn a lot from you all, and appreciate that. So when we're talking also about adoption, you know, Bambi, you also just hit on this. There's different types of adoption. I think international adoption, domestic adoption, adoption through foster care, adoption, you know, so many different types. And I think there's some myths, if I can throw this out there, some myths about cost with adoption. And this is something I hear on Facebook as an advocate for adoption. And a lot of people think adoption is so expensive, which I think it can be. You know, especially be it you're talking international adoption or different things. Adoption through foster care. And we start talking about adoption through foster care and people thinking that that's the way to adopt. Is this a good way for adoption, I guess is my question. And is there differences between this and international adoption, or different types of adoption? That was a loaded question. And Pam, Bambi, I'm going to throw that at you. I know, I'm sorry. This is intense, but this is a great subject and great things to get out there. So Pam, do you want to take that one?
Well, I just want to say, I love how you say the word foster or adoption through foster care, because there's this myth that it's foster to adopt, and there's no such thing as foster to adopt. There's adoption through foster care.
Okay.
But we do not have a foster to adopt program, because the goal of foster care is reunification.
Right.
Reunification is not adoption. It's reunification. So all of our efforts are put into working with all of the people involved in working with birth families, in helping build those families back up to be able to get their families back together. That is our goal. And when all of those avenues are exhausted, and we find out that this child's not able to go back home, then they petition the court for termination of parental rights. And it's not until that termination of parental rights happens that child is then legally free for adoption. Then we can start looking the adoption realm. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So, you know, so adoption can happen through foster care, but it's not foster to adopt. So I'm glad that you put it that way. Thank you.
Yeah, well, no, and thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
And so adoption through foster care or by, I mean, that is definitely, and we have a question in the chat kind of talking about that right now from Barry asking a birth parents do they have to give the permission before a child can be adopted?
Well, and Rusty, I think that was your question. Part of your last question was the difference between adoption through foster care and a private adoption. There's a big difference. So children through foster care are placed in foster care by the Iowa Department of Human Services because of abuse or neglect that's so profound that the safety is at risk and the child can't stay in the house. Again, as Pam said, and I've said earlier, the goal is reunification. Everyone on the team is going to work towards getting that child back to a birth family member. Now, that may not be birth mom or dad. That could be birth grandparents, aunts and uncles, kinship care, suitable other, something like that. The other types of adoption, domestic and international, is more where a birth parent, whether it's mom and or dad, they're making a plan for adoption.
Okay.
And so they would come to a private agency such as Catholic Charities or Bethany Christian Services or one of those agencies, and they would make a plan for adoption. So yes, they would have to give permission for their child to be adopted. In foster care, parents may decide to voluntarily terminate their parental rights, but more often than that, the courts usually will do the termination of parental rights.
Okay. So that, and again, this can be a confusing topic for some folks. I mean, because, you know, as adoption and as we're celebrating so many adoptions via National Adoption Month right now, which is what we're talking about on YSS Let's Talk Live, it can be kind of a confusing topic when we're talking about all these different categories of adoption. But that's why Pam is here. That's why Bambi is here. That is why they are talking, and they're answering your questions. Right. So thank you for that question, Barry. And anybody else tuning in live right now, you can ask that. You can ask any question. If you're not tuning in live and you want some more information about this, let me put that out there right now too. You can go to www.yss.org and you can find some information. Bambi and Pam, real quick, what are some other resources that folks can go to if they would just like a little bit more information?
Definitely. They can go to www.iowafosterandadoption.org. That's the Four Oaks Family Connections website. Also, as you can see on the screen, you could go to Iowans for Adoption. There's other couple of those other websites that are up there are supports to foster care. So people could help out. And we're going to talk about that in a few minutes, I think, about how, if you can't be a foster parent, how you might support. But there's also Wendy's Wonderful Kids. You could go on to the Dave Thomas Foundation. That's children who are across the United States that are freed for the purpose of adoption. So there's lots of resources.
Okay. And speaking of resources, that leads right into what we are going to talk about. For folks that might not necessarily want or feel that they're ready or able to be a foster or adoptive parent, what are ways that they can get involved? What are ways they can contribute and be part of this village that we talk about?
Sure. First of all, I wanted to go back and answer one more question you had before, the difference between the cost of adoptions, because that's a big thing. A lot of times people get the confusion too. So if you go through the state of Iowa to get licensed as a foster parent and or an adoptive parent, the state is going to pay for that entire process. They're going to pay for the home study. They're going to pay for all the record checks, everything that you need to become a licensed foster and adoptive parent for the state of Iowa. They're going to pay for that. Once and if you go to the purpose of adoption, depending on if your child is what's called deemed special needs, and there's a whole criteria for that. They have to be 5 years of age or older, have a disability or a diagnosis, something like that. There's a whole criteria. If your child is diagnosed or is deemed what's called special needs, the state is also going to help pay for the adoption up to, and I believe it's $500 per child for lawyer fees.
Wow.
And so again, there might be some out-of-pocket expenses for you to adopt, but not a lot. So, and that's quite different than domestic adoption. You're probably talking at least 10 to 15.
Right.
And international, you're probably talking more like probably 20 to 50,000, depending on where you're adopting from.
And this is something that, and Pam, talking to you too, I'm sure you get this, and Bambi, I mean, as I, one of those resources that we just put up there earlier, Iowans for Adoption, I work very closely with. And I on Facebook and other chat, that is one of the biggest myths, Bambi and Pam, that I get is, oh, adoption is so expensive. It's because you get what you were just talking about, that international adoption, which, yes, you're right, can be $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. But what did you just say? That through foster care or through, we're talking...
The state will pay for it. The state pays for the license. Yep.
And even like you said, there might be some out-of-pocket expense, but I know that there's resources out there and organizations that might also be able to help out with even those out-of-pocket expenses as well.
Right.
So wow, and people can become a part of those other resources and those other organizations. So now, kind of segueing back into that. So what are some of those ways that people can get involved? If they can't be a foster adoptive parent, let's come around the table and how do we help out?
Right. Foster and adoption is not for everybody. And
Right.
it's, we would encourage people to, if you are interested, to attend an orientation. And again, you can go to the iowafosterandadoption.org and you can link into an orientation. They're on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. and on Sunday nights at 8 p.m. That way people can make an informed decision if this is something they want to process with or not. If they don't, there are many, many other ways that they can support. They can bring a meal to a foster family. When you get a new child in your home or a sibling group or 2 or 3, the last thing you want to do is think about what you're going to cook that night. We've had families that do laundry for foster families. Come over or hey, I'm going to take your laundry, or they will put together first night bags. I've had lots of organizations that do that. They'll put together like duffel bags that have personal hygiene items for 0 to 5, and then 6 to 12, and then 13 up. And we give them to the families to have in their closet. So when they get the kids, especially those urgent placements that come in the middle of the night or in the middle of the day, and you just need a toothbrush and you need some deodorant and stuff like that. Well, here it is. It's in this bag, and maybe a quilt or a stuffed animal. Walmart cards, Target cards, Amazon cards are always helpful because, again, if we know a family's getting a sibling group and they're going to have, just think about the laundry. Just think about laundry that comes up. How much extra laundry soap and fabric softener and things like that do you need? So if we could give a family a gift card that says, here, go out and get your additional household items that you need to take care of these kids, how wonderful that would be and stuff. So Pam, what do you think? What other things would you think?
Those are all great. If you have a chance to look at that website for Cadence Closet, that organization was started by a wonderful person who grew up in foster care herself and was adopted as a teenager. She started these closets, and they're all throughout the state of Iowa, and there are some in the states surrounding Iowa, and they're like stores that foster and adoptive families can go to, as well as military families, to look for things that they need for their placements that are in their homes. So these stores can have clothing, they can have personal items, they can have the overnight bags are there. They just help families in tremendous ways. It's just a wonderful, wonderful organization.
Yep. A couple of them that I know about have diapers and cribs and car seats, and and again, they're open certain times, but we know families that have called whoever's running the Cadence Closet and said, hey, I just got kids yesterday, and they open it up at 8 o'clock at night and let the families come in and get what they need. So donating to something like that, it's just fabulous, so that it's there when people need it.
And this kind of goes into my next question too. What are the biggest needs for the foster adoptive homes in Iowa? I mean, does that kind of cover it, or do we have some more needs and more listed? Because my goodness, I had never even thought about that. Like you say, bringing food and I mean, how awesome is that? That is something I think I'm going to personally try. Now, I don't cook, but my husband does, so I'm going to put that on. So we're going to work on that. But I mean, how awesome though? How great is that to be able to do creative things like that to help support, and then ultimately you're contributing to something that's contributing to countless future generations. And making this Iowa such a wonderful, wonderful place. So what are some more needs? What are the biggest needs, would you say? Pam or Bambi, I'll throw that too.
I would say the biggest needs, we need families who'll take children of all ages. I would say up to a couple of years ago, our biggest need was for 13 and older. But I think current stats have showed that we just need families that will take, 0 to 5, 6 to 13, and 18 and older. Now, we all know that there's going to be different challenges with each group. If you take the younger, there's some stats right there. So in Polk and Story County, we had 381 children that were removed. This was 2019 stats. We don't have 2020. We're a little bit behind. And you can see there's 187 that were removed that were 0 to 5, 83 that were 6 to 13, and 111 that were 13 to 18. So there's quite a few that are 0 to 5. And during that time, we only had 288 families. So only 100 that would take 0 to 5, 68 that would take 6 to 13, and 100 that would take 13 to 18. So what happens when we don't have enough homes for the children? We always try to place the child within a 20-mile radius of where they're from. That way, if it's at all possible, they can maintain in their same school systems, they can attend their same churches, they can have more frequent visits with birth family members, they can keep their lives maybe as normal as possible with their connections that they've already had. When we don't have a home in that area because we don't have enough or they're already full or whatever else, then we have to go to a 40-mile radius and a 60-mile radius and an 80-mile radius. And the farther out that we have to place a child, the harder to maintain any of those contacts, including visits with birth families, get. Because when we have to say to a birth family, or even usually it's family-centered services that are transporting the children to the visits. But think about how awful that is for a 3-year-old to have to do a car ride for an hour, to have a 2-hour visit, then to ride an hour back. So we need homes for these kids in the areas that they are at. So so I would say, and then people need to realize that it's going to be challenging. You know, parenting is challenging. You add children with trauma, you increase the challenges, but also you make a difference. So,
and you do. I mean, Bambi, you were just talking, and not to get too emotional or too in it, but you said it. You know, I was in that situation, being raised in foster care, where yes, I had to drive an hour to go visit my mom. And it was for an hour, whatever. And they had to go and pick up my sisters, my biological sisters, in a different foster home. And then we would have to go from there to drive to a different city to go. So from what I'm hearing you say is the biggest need is the need for homes right now. And foster homes. And for those who are watching right now, yes, we're celebrating National Adoption Month on YSS Let's Talk, but we're also putting out the need there for foster homes and for communities to kind of rally around this. For those who want to inquire about this, Bambi and Pam, did I hear that right? That on Wednesday and Sunday, that you said 8 p.m., there's some sort of an orientation or something folks can tune into to check this out to see if it's right for them?
Yeah. Pam, you want to talk about that? You just did it last night.
I did. I just did it last night. Yeah, I did. We spent about an hour just going through the real basics of what you'd be getting yourself into. We want you to make an informed decision. And we have a time for questions and answers. And just we talk about foster care and adoption and about the needs that are out there, the types of children that are coming into care. If you're able to take sibling groups, I heard you mention that you were in a different home than your sister, and we try really hard to keep those sibling groups together if at all possible. It's important for those kids to stay together. They've lost everything, and if we can keep them together, that's just one more connection that they get to hold on to. So those are just part of those needs that we're looking for.
And so where do for folks that, and hey, if you're tuning in right now, and even maybe you're thinking that this isn't necessarily right for me to become actually a foster or adoptive parent, but I know of somebody that I think might be, and maybe I want to send them some information or encourage them. First, share this video. Secondly, Pam, where do they go to tune in to one of those sessions that we were just talking about on Wednesday and Sundays?
Well, they could visit our website, the www.iowafosteransadoption.org. There is a little tab that says, let's get started, and it'll walk you through the entire process. So they can do it in the comfort of their own home. They can check it all out. It's all there on the website. And if they're ready to take that next step, it tells them what they need to do to get signed up.
Okay, that's simple. That's simple.
Yeah, it's simple.
Pretty much any of these resources that we're talking about, any of them, you can contact and they can direct you and get you to be a part of this great thing, which is really something that's impacted my life greatly, created me who I am, which was all the foster families that I had, and then becoming adopted. And Pam, you being an adopted mom, Bambi, you being an adopted mom, and all of the difference. And then not only are you guys adopted moms, I got to give you kudos. You also work on the other side of the fence. And now, and you do this and encourage and inspire so many others to do this too. I'm gonna throw you a curveball here. What would be something inspiring that you would like to leave with folks, to inspire them to get involved with foster care, with adoption, and be it being a foster, an adoptive parent, or just like all of the other ways to get involved? What would you say to folks? I know, I'll play the Jeopardy theme right now as you think about it. You won't be singing that though. Guaranteed.
I guess what I would say is, we had a logo for a while, and it said, "If not you, then who?" or "If not you, then why?" And I guess that's always stuck with me, because I've always thought, if just for our case, if we would not have stepped up for our daughter and adopted her, she came into the foster care system when she was 7 months old, and we adopted her when she was 5. So she stayed in the foster care system for about 4.5 years. I often wonder what happened, where she would have ended up. And she may have found another good family, but she may not have, and, so I guess that's the question I would ask people is, why not? When people say, well, I couldn't be a foster parent, and my question isn't, well, why do you think my question is, why not? And usually it's, well, we don't have enough room, or we don't have enough money, or we don't have this. And I'll go, well, nope, that's not true. And then we'll talk about those myths, and we'll talk about the facts. But it's just taking that step. And again, as I already said, it's not going to be easy. When you give birth to a child, it's not necessarily easy. Parenting is not easy. And so adopting a child that comes from trauma is not going to be easy. But you go into it knowing that, and you go into it knowing that you want to make a difference, because what I can tell you is, even though we have struggled with our daughter and with some issues and stuff, she has a son who she loves to death. He's almost 2 years old, and she is a fantastic mother to him. So I know that cycle is going to stop with her, with kids going into the foster care system. So we made a difference, if nothing else, to our grandson, who is not going to ever be in the foster care system.
Yep. And you just hit on something, Bambi. I is a soapbox of mine, that cycle. And I don't think, well, I can't say this, Pam and Bambi. I know that you know the influence that you have, but sometimes I question if other foster parents really know that true influence that they have of breaking that cycle of being it in the welfare system, or being it, just that kind of, if it wasn't for the people that were in my life, and the foster parents and the team around me and all of those other people, I truly don't know where I would be right now. And that is a huge shout out to all of those people, who, like you said, Bambi, it's not going to be easy. But they took that and they decided that, yes, they were going to do it. And it's, again, truly credible. I heard something once that said it's the toughest job that you'll ever truly love. And Pamela, what is your, do you have any words of encouragement?
Well, I guess it's perspective. So I encourage people to really think about their reasoning in coming into the foster care world. Are they there to find a child for their family, or are they there to give their family to a child? I think there's a big difference between the two. I think with the first one, finding a family to fit your child, your expectations are way too high. You're going to have expectations. And when that child doesn't meet your expectations, then things go wrong. But if you give your family to a child, I don't feel that there's expectations there. You're giving what you have to that child. Our children that we became their forever families, we adopted 2 sibling groups of 3 to be able to keep kids together. Our last adoption was a 13-year-old girl who had moved 8 times. And so we gave our family to her. And it's not easy, but we love her tremendously. She's definitely part of our family. Moving forward, we have, a few short years before she's out on her own, and we're giving her all that we've got. She's definitely knows that she's part of this family.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there you have it. No matter who you are listening to this, no matter where you're at, almost no matter what age you are, you can help be a part of this great thing that we're talking about, celebrating National Adoption Month here. If being a foster adoptive parent, you think right away, no, I know that's not right for me. I tell you what, there are still ways that you can get involved. And you can go to all of the links and all of the resources that we've put up there on the screen earlier. Matt, can you throw those back up? And if anybody's confused, Matt is our wizard behind the curtain here. Right there you go. All of those resources. You can find out a way. I still love that idea of just even saying, hey, if I know you're a foster family, I'm going to bake you a casserole and I'm going to bring that over to you. I love that. It almost encourages me to become a foster parent just so I get some casseroles.
We can sign you up. We know how to do that.
Okay, I love it. I love it. But there's so many other ways. There's walks, there's runs, there's advocacy, there is education that you can do. If you're an educator, there's different ways. You can even get your kids involved in so many different things and to open up and to educate them as well. And of course, if by getting involved in this, you find out that, yes, I can be a foster parent, adoptive parent, or I'm willing to be, or that I want to explore more in it. Pam and Bambi just talked about Wednesday and Sundays every week. Is that right? Every week?
Yeah.
Every week. That's awesome. Every week, Wednesday and Sunday, you can provide or attend kind of an orientation and find out so much more about this at 8 p.m. So all of this information you'll be able to find at www.yss.org. And Bambi and Pam, thank you so much for everything that you do. Truly incredible. On both sides of the fence, personal and professional. Absolutely awesome. Before I let you go, anything else you would like to share? Because this has been a truly incredible night.
I would just say, if it's ever something that's crossed your mind, take that step, attend that orientation, see if it's for you. If it's not, maybe another way you can help. But if it is, then we have kids that need you. And so they need what, as Pam said, what you can give. So step up and take the plunge, I guess.
Yep. And we'll be there every step of the way. Someone will be there to walk with you and support you along that way. And I just want to throw out that we have that T-shirt fundraiser going on right now. It's one of those links in that PowerPoint. If you're willing to buy a T-shirt, and it's just letting people know about Iowa foster care and adoption. It's a great way to let people know.
I love that. And the support, like you said, Pam, there will be support around you.
Absolutely.
Yes. Lots of support.
Yes, you're not alone.
You won't be doing this alone. There will be a lot of support and a lot of resources all around you. And Bambi, you said something that also made me think, you know what? Again, I want to encourage folks that even if you think that being a foster adoptive parent is not for you, I can almost promise you, you do know somebody who it very well might be for. Yes. And that is as simple as sharing this video to them, or maybe giving me a call, Bambi a call, Pamela a call, and let us work our magic. And we can get them a part of this village that ultimately truly changes kids' lives here in Iowa for the better, and breaks that cycle and just creates so much of a better world and a better place. And again, better place because of people like Pam and Bambi. So thank you so much. Truly, thank you. So again, this is YSS Let's Talk. Every Thursday night, we are here. And tune in next Thursday night, because next Thursday night, I am talking with a friend of mine We actually work very closely together. She's under the same umbrella, same department that I work with in YSS. Her name is Julie White, and she is the YSS Youth Employment Specialist. And she's going to be talking about what she does ultimately to help the youth that we serve at YSS to get jobs, to learn how to do resumes, to learn all the skills, the guests that she brings in to really talk with the youth about getting the skills, getting the jobs, it's going to be awesome. Can't wait to talk to her next Thursday night, 7 p.m. Again, Pam, again, Bambi, thank you so much for being on YSS Let's Talk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. So, all right. So next Thursday, please tune in and share this, and happy National Adoption Month to everybody out there. Have a great night.
Thank you.